Hi everyone, welcome back. So I did recently reread both Tress and Yumi. I loved them so much the first time. I was curious to see if I'd love them as much the second time. And I have a couple changed opinions, believe it or not. So I'm excited to talk about them again. Because I talked about them before. I have my old reviews up, but I started with Yumi, but I'll start with Tress since it came out first anyways. But I mainly wanted to reread these two because the first time I read them, I just read them on the ebook format, and I have the physical, and I really wanted to read it on the physical format, see all the pictures, and it was really fun to read it this way. So I was super excited, and I just wanted to read something light and fun and quick, and these were both perfect for that. So I'm excited to have done my reread, but you'll be interested to know that I liked Tress better the first time. So Tress was still really good. It is still really good, but I didn't enjoy it as much the second time as I did the first time. The first time, this came out right in January. I was so excited. It was the first secret project booked. It sounded amazing, super unique world, which it is. But it was perfect. It's a perfect, cozy type fantasy read. You're actually getting a narration by Hoyd, which is really cool because he's like one of the most awesome characters. So I was really excited, and it turned out just as amazing as I thought it would be. It was so much fun. Now, the second time I read it, knowing the whole story, I just didn't enjoy it quite as much. I would still give it the 5 stars. I would still recommend it, but it just wasn't quite as special that first time I read it. And I think the main thing that did it for me was actually Hoyd's narration. I got a little annoyed with it on the second time. The first time it was great because it was fun to hear from his voice, but the second time I felt like it was dragging on a lot of times, and he just kind of kept going on in these random tangents and rants, and I was like, okay, I don't care about this the second time. Like, this is I just want to dive into the story. I don't want to be taken out of the story by him analyzing Tress's characteristics or something, or talking about the moral fantasy stories or something. I don't know. I didn't care. So it was like the second time I found myself more annoyed. And then also the other thing is I love the characters in the book. I really do. But so there is a little bit of a romance in both these books. Sanderson, though, he's not exactly the greatest romance type author. Yumi definitely does it a lot better, but Tress, there is one, but I feel like it wasn't necessary. I think Tress's journey would have been just as good as if she was going to just go and stop the sorceress. I also think if maybe, even a family member, like a brother or something, would have been taken, it would have had the same outcome. It didn't feel like the romance plotline was even necessary. And knowing what I know from the end of the book and then reading it again, I liked the romance less. So I don't know, I just didn't enjoy it as much as I did the first time. The world is still really unique. It's still a really great story of just Tress really gaining her courage and adventuring and all this, ship seafaring type story. It's a lot of fun. The world's really cool with the spores, the different color spores and how they react. And I found myself really just enjoying the scenes of Tress learning about those spores and conquering her fear of those, and learning how they work, how she can utilize them. And it was great. It really was. It's just, I found myself enjoying less parts of it, and it actually took me longer to read this than it did the first time. I think the first time I read this in maybe it was like 2 days or maybe a day, whereas this took me a little bit more time because I kept getting pulled away from the story. So I didn't enjoy it quite as much as I did the first time, but still really good. If you haven't read it yet, enjoy it that first time. Really, really get into it. So I definitely still recommend. I'd still give it the 5 stars. It's just, I don't know. I guess the spark's just gone from that first time. I don't know. It's still there. And when I reread this again, probably, but I give it more time. Maybe if I waited, like, I don't know, 5 years or something, I'd be like, oh yeah, I totally want to read that again. But it's really only been about 1.5 years. So I think maybe it's still too soon. I don't know. But I could see myself rereading again. I pretty much always reread Sanderson's books, so that's not really a problem. Okay, going on to Yumi. I actually did my reread first of this one. I enjoyed this way more the second time than I did the first time. I still give it 5 stars. Same with Tress. I feel like we need a different rating system because I'm just going to say they're all amazing. But I enjoyed this way more the second time. I had a lot more fun with this one. I think I enjoyed it more because I knew the ending. And so I was looking for those key signs and throughout the story of why the ending happened the way it did, because I was noticing things more. So that actually worked in its favor of knowing the ending. This also has a super unique world, same with Tress. This is also giving a little bit of a narration from Hoid, but unlike Tress, Hoid's voice isn't quite as overbearing. And you have his friend Design involved in the book, and she's great. So I liked having her involved, and you get some interactions between her and Hoid. Well, a little bit, but you also get her talking about Hoid. And I feel like I learned more about Hoid in this book than I did in Tress. I felt like I was just more annoyed by him. But in this one, I thought the narration voice was perfect because it wasn't overbearing. It wasn't too much, and you were still gaining from the story by having it. You weren't getting all these random tangents and everything. If anything, he was trying to help the story move along. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, especially the second time. And same with Tress, there is a romance in this one, but it's done better in this book. This one's more of like a forced proximity type relationship, because you got a little bit of like a body swap situation happening. So they both have to learn to react in each other's worlds. And it's quite complicated because they're both very, they're not exactly great characters on their own. So it's, Yumi, she's very, very strict, very, she's kind of like, I don't really know how to describe it, but she's very, I guess you could call her more religious than her type role, because she is considered this elevated type person. Her job is to essentially summon these types of spirits through her rock building formation stuff, and she helps the people around her. It sounds really weird, but it's not. It's really good. Well, it is actually kind of odd, but it works for her world. But anyways, she's very very strict in her procedure, her process. She can never deviate from it. She can't even have fun. Like she just lives her life in this certain ritual. That's what I was looking for, ritualistic. I found that word. But she's very, she just does what she's told by her essentially supervisor person or mentor, whatever she wants to call her, tyrant. There you go. And then you have Nightmare. Well, his name's not Nightmare. His name's Painter, but he's a nightmare painter. So Painter, he's an interesting character too. He really is kind of friendless. He's isolated himself from his friends. He's very, you can tell he's lost a lot of his spark, especially for drawing. He's questioning himself and just who he is. And so you can definitely tell he's going through a lot of growth in his character. He's trying to, and he needs help. And so having those two very different characters, having to have some type of forced proximity type relationship, you wouldn't think it works, but they both kind of help each other. And it doesn't start off well, but they eventually learn to kind of adapt to the other person, and they both learn from that. And I thought it was done really well. I really did enjoy it. As I mentioned, Sanderson's not the strongest with any type of romance relationship, as shown by a lot of his other books, where it's just kind of like a side thing, which usually I enjoy because I don't want that to be overbearing. I'm not exactly a romance reader, but I I think it was done well in this one, and I think it worked. But yeah, in Tress, I feel like it was an interchangeable type storyline. It could have been anything or anybody. I didn't think it was necessary. But in Yumi, I think it worked, and it was great. And as I mentioned, the worlds are unique. You kind of have two different worlds going on, or settings, I guess if you want to call it. So Yumi's is completely different, and Painter's is completely different. His is more of this dark world, and he has to he draws these he has to paint these nightmares into what he thinks that they could be, and then the nightmares essentially turn into that, and they can't be harmful. Whereas Yumi, she's more so like trying to summon these spirits to help people. So it's very interesting concept. They both have to learn to work in each other's worlds, and they've both never seen another world like that. And then you have Hoyt, who's just stuck, and he's just kind of overlooking everything. So you don't really have his voice being overbearing, which is really nice. He's just there. He's just narrating. And design is part of Painter's world, so you do have interactions with her, and they're great. I love it. So I really did enjoy Yumi the second time. I really did. I enjoyed it more the second time, and I would definitely reread this again. I'd probably wait a little bit, but I would reread it again. I really had fun with it. And there's a lot of pictures in this book, at least this hardback, and I loved it. They're all gorgeous and done really well. So if you haven't checked out at least the hardback version, I thought it was really good and it was worth it. But I enjoyed them both. I thought you might be surprised to know, though, that I didn't enjoy Tress as much the second time, and I enjoyed Yumi more the second time. But if you haven't read any of them, I definitely recommend both of them. They're both great, and I'm super excited. They're my favorite two of the Secret Project books, and so I definitely recommend them. And they're part of the Cosmere universe, so they fit in there because you have Hoyt involved too, and so it just adds a little bit to that whole world too. So if you haven't checked them out, do. But otherwise, thanks for watching.